York's classic rock, Q1043.
What an amazing story we have for you today. A movie is now open. It's a documentary. It's in theaters. It's called I Am Here, and it is the story of the incredible Ella Blumenthal, who is, bless, 100 years old. She survived not one, not two, but three concentration camps. And her attitude is just something we should all learn from and live. And with me this morning is Jordy Sank. Jordy, are you a relative?
No, I'm not a relative of Ella.
Okay. Tell us the story. Tell us how this documentary came to be, because even that is mind-blowing.
Sure. So I was privileged to grow up in the same community as Ella, and I saw her around, and I thought, I'd been able to meet many Holocaust survivors before, and I thought that's sort of the mold that she fitted into. But then one fateful Friday night, we attended a Friday night dinner, and sort of uninvited to speak, she stood up at the table and she started telling us heart-wrenching stories of her survival during the Holocaust. And we were all in tears around the table. We never expected this. And then something really remarkable happened. It's almost like someone flipped a switch, because this same woman who had us all in tears had us all in stitches, and she was dancing with the children and singing and playing, and she really just was the life of the party. And from a young age, I just looked at this woman and I said, how can this woman who's been through so much darkness, one of the darkest moments in history, how can she sort of be the light and have this remarkable energy and zest for life? And that was the start of a long friendship, and the start of me for a very long time speaking to her about developing a documentary about her life story.
It always amazes me, and I have no scientific proof of this, but I can't believe the number of Holocaust victims that live such long lives. I think it is far higher than the average population. Have you given any thought to this, Jordy? And do you have any theories on their longevity?
I think, their bodies were really tested to the limits. They were extremely malnourished and living through some of the worst circumstances. So I think that scientifically that some of that definitely plays a part. But the amazing thing about Ella is that her mind is just, she doesn't miss a thing, and she still has this vibrancy and this sense of humor. It's really just so remarkable to see in someone who's 100 years old. When you have this vision of someone who's 100 years old, she completely exceeds what that expectation is, which is remarkable.
So tell us the story you heard that night that sent you on this journey to create the wonderful documentary, I Am Here.
So the story that she told on that Friday night, and I remember it like it was yesterday, it was a story of her surviving, being thrown into a gas chamber in the concentration camp of Majdanek. And I don't want to spoil too much, because I think people must watch the film to see the incredible circumstances that led to her surviving. But what was amazing also about that night is that I just think that it's almost like, that's the thing with trauma, is anything can really trigger trauma. And I think something that that must have happened that Friday night just triggered this memory, and she stood up and she recounted to us, as and we all felt like we were all there with her. So that was the memory that she recounted that really just got me interested in her story. But then also her zest for life, I wanted to share that with the world as well. That's the other sort of flip side of the coin. This incredible personality.
You're not going to ruin the movie because there's so much going on in the movie. Explain how she survived a gas chamber.
So basically what ended up happening is that her and a group of girls were shoved into a gas chamber in Majdanek, and they thought it was the end for them. And they were crying, they were clawing at the walls, thinking this was their last moment to live. But then a German guard bursts in through the door and tells them to be quiet and that they're not going to be gassed, and that they're going to be taken to another camp and transported to another camp. And they're hearing this from a German. They did not believe it for a second. So the whole night they stay up and they think this is their last night to live. But the next day they are led out and they're taken to another camp. And as they are leaving to go into the transport, another Jewish prisoner tells them that the reason that they were saved is because the Germans were so meticulous that they wanted to gas a certain number of Jews, and they wanted to gas 500 Jews, and their transport was 700 Jews. So the Germans let their transport go, and the next bunch of girls who were on the dot 500 walked in and were gassed. So it happened to be because of German orderliness that she was spared.
I am speaking with Jordy Sank. He is the director of the amazing and powerful documentary I Am Here, which is now open in theaters. It is the story of Ella Blumenthal, who is now 100 years old. She was 98 years old when she was interviewed for this documentary, and she's now 100 years old. She survived 3 concentration camps in Nazi Germany, the only person in her family who survived with her. And the two really kept each other alive was her niece, Roma. Is Roma still with us?
Unfortunately, Roma about 3 weeks ago passed away. And yeah, it's Ella. It's been quite sad to see Ella mourn the passing of her only living relative that as you said, she was so close with and that she survived through all the camps with. So.
And at one point, she really gave Roma the will to live, because Roma was ready to give up, which you could well understand. And how did she convince Roma to persevere?
She convinced Roma to continue on, because she told her that they need to survive so that they could tell the world what the Nazis have done to them and to their families, and that they can continue the Jewish legacy. And yeah, interestingly enough, also Roma was one of the reasons Ella says that that also pushed her to survive. She became Roma's mother, her guardian. And she really survived in order to keep Roma alive, almost like a parent would do to a child.
Surviving 3 concentration camps and then winning freedom, Ella went to Palestine, where she met a man who would become her husband, and how she ended up moving to South Africa because he was South African. How long did these two know each other before they got married again?
They only knew each other for a couple of days, actually. They met
days,
yeah, a number of days, and they actually both never spoke. They spoke to each other in broken sort of whatever they could sort of understand, but he didn't speak a word of Polish, and she didn't speak really a word of English. But somehow these two managed to find love and find one another and connect, which is also just incredible.
Because she said she just fell in love with him, and they had a really good marriage, right?
A wonderful marriage. Incredible marriage.
And
Yeah.
tell us about the family.
Ella's family, her and her husband, they had four children. Two of them are currently in South Africa. The other two are in Australia. And now the incredible thing about her family is that now she lost 23 souls to the Holocaust, and now her family is more than 23 souls. All of her descendants, her grandchildren, her great grandchildren that she now has. She's you can never make up for that number and that loss, but it's incredible to see the legacy that one person can create it within their family.
And people have gone both ways who survived the Holocaust. Some become very religious and believe in God, and others do not. And also people have gone both ways with, I devote my life to telling this story so that everyone knows. And then I remember one woman I saw in another documentary, Surviving Auschwitz, she said, I'll never forget these words: I refuse to dwell on things that make me miserable. So she will not go there. Tell us what Ella's way of handling this was.
So Ella, as soon as it happened, it was, it was sort of shut off by her husband's family. It was very taboo, that that he'd married someone who survived the Holocaust. So, they actually suggested that she remove her tattoo. And, that's why today she doesn't have her number on her arm. She has a scar on her arm. So for many years, she did not talk about her story, and she didn't speak up. And a lot of people in the town, I went to do some interviews in the town that she used to live in, and a lot of people never knew that she was even a Holocaust survivor. And even her kids didn't know when they were growing up, and they would hear screaming in the middle of the night. They would hear their mother crying in the middle of the night. And Ella told us when we spoke with her that the cries in the middle of the night is because she thought that the Nazis were going to come and take her children from her. And it's incredible that now over the past few years, she's really opened up and she's telling her story. And especially within the community, she's always speaking about her story and wanting to speak to schools and wanting to educate the future generations on what happens, that please God, it can never happen again.
What made her finally tell her story?
She's never really boiled it down to one specific thing, but I think what she realized when she started to tell her story, that it was a cathartic experience for her. And she says that it's almost like this burden of not speaking. It was almost like a scar. It was like a wound. And now that when she speaks, it's almost like she feels like the wound is starting to heal. So it wasn't one specific event, but speaking through her trauma has really helped her move on with her life. And like you said, she's still a religious woman. She still believes in God, and her faith stayed all the way through the Holocaust. And I think it's also just about her outlook on life. She's always looking to the future, and she's always positive, and she'll always see the silver lining, no matter what she's confronted with.
How did Ella change your life, Jordy Sank?
Wow, it's in so many ways. Really, she's like a grandmother to me, and yeah, I think that for one of the things I can just say is that my wife and I, whenever we are confronted with challenging times and trauma, and even just getting through COVID, we sometimes look at ourselves and we say, what would Ella do in this, in these difficult times? And that gives us gives us a bit of a smile and gives us the sort of energy to move on. But what Ella's done for me, it's completely changed my whole outlook on life. And I just strive to be as zestful and happy as she is now, let alone when I am 100 years old.
I love that. I love this film. I Am Here. It is in theaters now. If you missed any part of our conversation, my interviews live on. The podcast is called Sunstein Sessions. Download the iHeartRadio app. It's free, and all my interviews are up there. And also, this will be on YouTube. I thank you so much, Jordy Sank. I thank Ella Blumenthal. Please, a kiss for her when you see her. What an inspiration. And I'll see you guys tomorrow morning on the Jim Kerr Rock and Roll Morning Show, Q104.3.
New York's classic rock, Q1043.